They say that good things come in threes. So what comes in fours? If you're talking about goals against, defeats on the bounce, then the answer is Halloween horror stories. This is the Talk of the Trinity podcast.
Until you break down.
Hello and welcome to the latest edition of the Talk of the Trinity podcast. I'm Baz Barrett. With me is not Will Forrest, but don't worry, you will be hearing from him later due to the power of editing. Check us out on the Twitter page at Talk Trinity, on the YouTube channel at Talk Trinity. Previous podcasts are also available to listen on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, Google, Stitcher, and some other ones that I have probably forgotten. But speaking of things that are best forgotten, that leads us nicely to the events at Villa Park on Sunday afternoon, Halloween, 4:30, Villa 1, West Ham 4. And it's difficult to know where to begin, really, because it was a pretty desperate day all round. I mean, I was watching the game in a local drinking establishment, enjoying a few adult beverages, and my mood was certainly not improved during the course of the game, surrounded by West Ham fans who were very much enjoying their trip to Birmingham to see their team win once again against Villa. I mean, traditionally, the teams have been relatively close, relatively even in terms of the record. But in recent times, especially since the second coming of David Moyes, West Ham appear to have got the upper hand over Villa. And it perhaps looked like it wasn't going to be our day when the team sheets came out. I mean, we've talked in previous podcasts and a lot of debate about Villa fans as regards whether to go back to 4-3-3. Finally, we did, but in quite a different starting 11 than perhaps anticipated. A couple of those changes were enforced. Douglas Luiz, apparently injured, raced against time to see if he'll be fit for Friday's game. And Danny Ings apparently ill, and so not even in the squad along with Luiz. Tyrone Mings dropped from the starting 11 on the bench. Big call, dropping your captain. I mean, in terms of, we talked about it in the Arsenal review, not the greatest game from Tyrone Mings. A few mistakes during the course of the season. But was it a surprise to see him dropped ahead of other players? Yeah, it was, to be honest. I mean, in terms of other players have not played particularly well in comparison. I mean, I think Matt Targett comes to mind as somebody who could equally have been on the chopping block based on recent performances. But perhaps it was a psychological message to send to the squad after the first half at Arsenal that Deano's not afraid to shake it up, and there's no bigger shake-up than dropping your captain from the team. Ultimately, you look at the scoreline 4-1, it may be easy to say that, if Mings would have played, then the outcome would have been different. To be honest, I don't think you can really say it would have made too much difference. I mean, Konza and Hors playing at centre-back, they were a little shaky in the first half, but I think that was generally the team as well. I mean, it was an early goal from West Ham. Again, you could say in terms of target, should have closed that down. Was Martinez a bit slow to get across? It was perfectly placed in the bottom corner. I mean, you know, in terms of he's going to try and hit that shot another 10, 20 times and he's not going to get it in the corner again. So, you know, say a bit unlucky, but I think overall, unfortunately, in that first half, we did get the equaliser through Ollie Watkins. Whilst it's nice to see him get a goal, the fact that Ings wasn't playing and Watkins scoring, you know, inadvertently perhaps suggests that playing together in a two is not going to get the best out of either of them. Watkins, the centre of attention, getting back on the score sheet. But apart from that brief moment and a couple of minutes after the goal, I thought we were pretty poor, to be honest, in that first half. I thought West Ham had the higher intensity. And perhaps unsurprisingly, really, going into the game, fourth place in the table, that their confidence was a lot higher than ours. And I think you could tell that we were kind of penned back a bit, really, in that first half. And that second goal for West Ham, was a absolutely key moment in the game. And, kind of in a similar method to kind of how the first goal went, really. And there's going to be, in terms of, we talked about it in the preview with Declan Rice saying he's perhaps goes under the radar in terms of being a goal scoring threat, but like, if you don't close him down, he's no mug, as was demonstrated by his strike from the edge of the box. I mean, you could say closed down, should have been, but you're going to get punished at this level. And then the real, you could say the final hammer in the coffin, that red card for Konza shortly after the start of the second half. Was it a red card? I think it's harsh in terms of, obviously, Dean Smith didn't think it was a red card. I think it goes down to those. If it would have been the other end of the pitch, I think he would have wanted the West Ham player, if it would have been the other way, to have been sent off. And I think he would have been fuming if we would have got away with a yellow card, gone the other way. I mean, I see the point in terms of maybe going away from goal, maybe in terms of would Young have covered it. I thought, in comparison to, the Courtney Hawes incident in the same build-up, I don't see how that wasn't a red card, to be honest. I mean, whether it's accidental or not, it's a forearm to the face. And I thought that was worthy of a red card, in all honesty. But if you're clearing that as not being red card worthy, then I don't think Konza was. And that changed the whole course of the game, in a sense of 10v11, having to chase the game. There was a few moments in terms of, we hit the bar, a bit of pressure, but you could tell it was chasing the game. And then instant just before West Ham's third goal, clear red card. West Ham player, how he's got away with that, I don't know. I mean, I thought it was a pretty poor refereeing display all round, and it's always annoying, to say the least, when somebody who perhaps should have been in the book and down the tunnel goes and pops up and scores against you. And, especially when there's no way back. I mean, West Ham, after that third goal, Jared Bowen gets the fourth, picked us off fairly comfortably. Again, we picked on Jared Bowen in the preview as somebody who causes trouble. And he did, to be fair to him. I mean, I think it's always easier when you got a goal early on and you're the confidence team and the confidence player. But it looked like somebody who is at home in the Premier League and, is going to be a contributor for West Ham, you would think, in their march towards European qualification. Whether, I think the Champions League is a bit beyond them, to be honest, but I don't see any reason why they shouldn't be thinking that they're legitimate challengers for the Europa League again. So a real disappointing afternoon, an incredibly frustrating afternoon, and in injuries. Talking about before the game, Jacob Ramsey goes off, rolling his ankle. That didn't look very good. You'd anticipate that he might be out for a few weeks. I mean, look, it's good to see Leon Bailey get some minutes, working his way into the team. You think you can see how he is going to be a threat, once he's fully up to speed and once he can last the 90 minutes as well. I mean, I think that's going to be a real big asset to this team. I thought Nakamba played all right, to be fair. I mean, I had him in my team before the game just because I thought that West Ham would be honest, and I think we needed somebody just to pick the passes, pick apart the passes from West Ham, have that kind of defensive solidarity. I don't think he disgraced himself. I thought, he was one of our better players. I mean, in terms of Ashley Young coming on to play centre midfield, I know Will's got a few thoughts on this, but I could see why in terms of that situation, bringing on the experienced head that early in the game. Maybe if it would have been later on, maybe the second half, maybe one of the younger players, Chuck Wecker, may have come on, a little bit of younger, more aggressive, attacking intent. And if it would have been the second half, and if it would have been still had 11 men on the pitch, but I can see why in terms of the way that decision was made, in terms of what I want to see Ashley Young playing centre midfield on Friday night. If Ramsey is not fit, then no, I wouldn't, in all honesty. I mean, I think he tried hard, experience in there, but no, I mean, he's certainly not the long-term answer to centre midfield. It's not the short-term answer, quite frankly, to centre midfield. In terms of whether he should be in the team, I mean, the best chance, I think, of him playing is left back. I mean, Matt Targett, again, we mentioned first goal wasn't closing down. I think he's struggling. I mean, we've mentioned in terms of, we were talking on our Spaces episode last week that fullback, the cupboard is looking bare at Villa. Targett, first choice, not really much behind him in reserve at left back. Right back, not really much behind. Matt Cash, I mean, Matt Cash was all right. I mean, it's one of those games whereby if you're on the back foot, it's very difficult to put Cash. His more natural game is going forward. I think we all have to accept that, and kind of real manning of the barricades effort. And that makes it difficult for players like Buendia. I mean, he was preferred in the starting lineup. It's some nice touches. I mean, the goal involved him. You just got to hope that if the team plays better, then he will play better. I mean, in terms of, it's difficult to come into a new team when they're struggling and impose yourself, regardless of how good you are. It's a difficult ask, and I can see him getting some stick from Villa fans at the moment, but I think it's a bit early to be calling that, to be honest. I mean, in terms of whether he's first choice, that's a different question, but I think it's too early in his Villa career to be calling him a bust. And at the opposite end, is it near the end of Dean Smith's Villa career? I mean, we talked about it in the Spaces we did about the next 4 games, absolutely critical, you would think, for, or at least for those nerves to kind of either get more nuanced or kind of more obvious, I should say, or whether to dispel them. I mean, West Ham was always the most difficult game out of the 4. Probably couldn't have gone any worse. So I suppose in a positive way, you think, well, it can't get any worse. So at least, hopefully better is to come. I mean, we're going to be previewing the Southampton game in special podcast later in the week. But yeah, I mean, it's obviously not a good position to be in. I mean, we used the analogy previously in terms of the warning lights are on the car. It's the table at this stage of the season doesn't lie. I mean, 10 games in, Villa are 15th. In terms of, do I think Villa will be 15th at the end of the season? No, I don't, but certainly no room for complacency. And there are going to be a lot of eyes on the dugout at Villa over the next month or so. I mean, at time of recording, Nuno has just been sacked by Spurs, and they beat Villa 3-1 just under a month ago. So it does demonstrate how quickly things can turn. And speaking about quickly things can turn, we're going to turn now to my co-host Will Forrest, who was at Villa Park yesterday. He probably wishes he wasn't in terms of watching the game. I'm sure he had a good day with his lad in terms of a good experience, but his thoughts on how the game went, you can hear them right now.
We got absolutely hammered by West Ham. Looking at that game in the cold light of day, after letting the emotion of the defeat subside, it doesn't get any better. The first 2 goals that we conceded were poor. I didn't feel like there was enough pressure put onto Johnson or onto Rice. Young was slow in getting across to Rice, but no one else stepped out towards him. And Johnson being allowed to cut inside and hit that across Martinez. Martinez, you'd have expected to have saved both those shots last season, such as the quality of him as a goalkeeper. So to see him concede 2 quite similar goals, really, from as far out as they were, was a bit of a shock. Then their other 2 goals, well, Jared Bowen ripped us apart, didn't he, really? Should he have gone for the push on McGinn? I think so. It's retaliation. There was the horrible tackle on Nakamba as well, but referee didn't seem to care. Referee was awful official. I've seen better at under-11 Sunday League. But no, the other goals were well worked by West Ham. They got away. They exploited us with their pace, really, getting forward, playing it around and scoring. Great save by Martinez just before the 3rd. It was a shame that Young's slide was to no avail before Lanzini, or Fornells, I can't even remember which one it was now, scored the 3rd goal. Was there any moments of quality for the Villa? Yeah, the goal, cash to Buendia. Buendia rolled his marker absolutely fantastically and put the ball on a plate for Watkins. We were quite lucky Bailey didn't get onto the end of it. And Watkins finished superbly. Not sure what the celebration was all about, but it's nice to see him get a goal. Apart from that, fans are mentioning the effort that hit the crossbar. I don't think that was really a moment of quality. The ball came out, we crossed it back in, he had a header, it hit the bar. I'm sorry to be negative, but it wasn't slick football that led to that chance. It was a cross into the box and a header. Yeah, I mean, our night was awful, really, wasn't it? Conser getting sent off. He's the last man. Would Young have got across to be able to put a slide in on Bowen when he was going to shoot? We'll never know. You'd have thought he would have. It's surprising that the referee's given it as a red card. He has done. We're screwed now for a few games with Conser being out. Hopefully Mings doesn't get booked, who, when he came on, I thought looked assured, played well. It was a big call from Deano to drop him, and fair play to him for doing so. Though there were a couple of weird decisions from Deano. Ashley Young into centre midfield. Played there against Brentford, did okay. You'd have thought Carney would have come on. Like for like, really, in regards to with JJ. Yes, he doesn't have the Premier League experience, but he is a central midfielder. He's comfortable on that ball. He wants to get onto it. He wants to create. He wants to see what he can do. And you need that positivity. You need players to take the game by the scruff of the neck and try and do things for you. Bailey, whenever he got the ball, went backwards mainly. Buendia did one lovely flick. McGinn went forward sometimes. Nakamba, if he went forward, played it back. I think Chukwuemeka would have helped us quite a bit. Young as well, without sounding horrible, needed to change his studs, didn't he? He wasn't the greatest at controlling things, and you put him out on the right, he's lost that yard of pace. He's not going to get round full-backs like he did before. Hopefully he can out-trick them. But really, Young should be playing at left-back, ahead of Matty Targett, who just has not played very well at all this season. He was very much he was a player who excelled when there were no fans. And unfortunately, like his first season, he's having a bit of a mare again. Does he need dropping? He seems to be an untouchable. I'd put Young in. And then you'd hope that someone like Ben Crescent could go out on loan and potentially come back next season to challenge Targett, unless we go after a Rafael Guerrero, who I've mentioned before, or another left back and get them in to challenge Targett. it really shows that we need players to come in and challenge our first 11, because there are too many players who are comfortable there. McGinn has had quite a good season, but he's a bit too comfortable. He knows that no one's going to knock him out of the team. I wouldn't have had him as captain. I'd have had Emil Konsa as captain, to be honest with you. But we just fell apart yesterday. I've heard people say that, well, we did well when we had 10 men. We hit the bar and we went on one attack, which got called back. We didn't do very well, really. West Ham could easily have stepped it up. Declan Rice ran the show. Ogbonna and Issa weren't troubled at all. And, I mean, even Antonio didn't have to do anything. That's how comfortable they were. The players, we need a reaction from them. Deano always says this, but we do need a reaction from them going into this game against Southampton. And I'm hoping there are some big calls. I mean, Mings and Twanzebe, for me, at centre-back, because of the right foot, left foot. I think they're natural ball players, which is what we need. Hopefully, Dougie or Ings is back, depending on which one's got the injury, which one's got the COVID problems. But you put those two in, or you put one of those two in. Watkins stays up front then, unless Ings is back. Then I'd put Watkins out onto the wing. Then you have Bailey, Ings and Watkins. I'm spoiling the Southampton preview now, aren't I? We'll see. We're no closer to the time in regards to injuries and whatnot, but there are players who need a rocket up their arse. And we've got plenty of great younger players who should be given a chance to come in, and players on the bench who are first team quality that have played well before that deserve a chance. Why not throw El Ghazi back in? El Ghazi on the left, Bailey on the right. Those are the sides they like to play. They'll do it for us, given the opportunity. But for the first time, really, since the summer, it was the first time that I felt that we lacked Jack. Jack Grealish would have got us out of trouble yesterday, or at least he would have taken the game to West Ham. He did it against Southampton when we lost 4-3. We were dead and buried, but he gets the ball, he runs with it, he takes defenders on. We missed him. We need players to do that, to just keep trying, even if they're getting tackled or things aren't paying off. The fans would appreciate what they're doing. Matty Cash tried it a few times yesterday with some runs. Fair play to him, because he had a good game, as did Nakamba, in my opinion. But overall, he just wasn't good enough. And West Ham thoroughly deserved their 3 points. Well, those are my thoughts and opinions on the game. Hammered by the hammered. Hammered by the hammers. A thriller at the Villa for all the wrong reasons. Not a very nice Halloween night. Anyway, we'll speak to you soon. You've heard what Baz said. You've heard what I say. We'll have our Southampton preview as well. Cheers, Tar. Thank you very much. And as always, up the Villa.
Thanks for listening. Check us out on Twitter at Talk Trinity. Check us out on YouTube at Talk Trinity, Apple, Spotify, all of the other podcast channels that we're listed on. Check us out in terms of the Twitter page. Let us know what your thoughts are, what you're thinking. We'll be running our usual build up to the Southampton game ahead of Friday. And listen out for our Southampton preview podcast coming to you later in the week. So thanks for listening, and speak to you soon.